Welcome to another episode of Encounter Grow Witness, as Beth shakes her head at that silly introduction, the podcast where we talk about what it means to unleash the gospel, especially for those who are working in our parishes. As we move into families of parishes, we are going to have a great episode today. So I'm excited. And Beth, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah. August.
How
Summer.
Yeah, how awesome summer is in Michigan.
Yeah.
I love summer in Michigan.
Yeah.
It is what we sit through that
The
whole
rest.
winter for.
Right.
So summer in Michigan, if there wasn't construction, would be so
Yeah, I was
much
going to
better.
make it, but you beat me to it. Yeah. Yeah. Construction season. Yeah.
But it's also vacation season,
Yeah.
and I know lots of people get to explore different parts of the state, or, this summer is like road trip summer.
Yeah.
So many people going on road trips and doing things. Beth, any Spazzarni family trips this summer?
Yeah. We went out to Grand Rapids just for a weekend, just to kind of get away with the kids. And I was asking my kid the same question we had talked about a couple months ago, what favorite summer memories. And his favorite summer memories were playing with the neighbors, and that one time we got ice cream. So after crying myself to sleep, I was like, we can do better than that. We can do better than that. So we packed everybody up and got on the road, and we also got ice cream that one time again, and had a great time. So it was nice to be away, and went swimming, saw Lake Michigan, the zoo, things like that. So it was nice. Yeah.
That is fantastic. I thought
Hoping it makes his future list of
I thought
summer
he was
memories.
going to say like this, Mom. This is.
Yeah, right. No, we're not like that.
Oh, that's great.
How about you? Any trips?
So I went with a group of priest friends up to Mackinac City, and we kind of just spent a few days, went up to Tequamanon Falls and did some hiking around there, went to over to Mackinac Island, which was hopping. It was just really cool to see like a lot of people out and about. We had beautiful weather, and to me, one of the best parts of summer is up north, sunset, Mackinac Bridge. Like that is pretty quintessential. So I told them, I'm like, hey guys, we're getting ice cream that one time.
Sure, that one time. Yeah. Well, you don't want to overdo it.
Right. And we're going to hang out, as the sun's going down. And it was a lot of fun. It was a beautiful trip. Beautiful. Nice. Like Michigan's so beautiful. I love our state. So
yeah. Hashtag pure Michigan. Huh?
Yeah. We could do the Tim Allen voice.
Oh, let's hear it. You want to do it for us? Let's hear it.
I can't think of it.
Both of our listeners are really interested.
This, going up north is a beautiful part of summer. And at the beginning of summer, Archbishop Vigneron released a new pastoral note. For those who maybe don't know, the Archbishop released a pastoral letter called Unleash the Gospel back in 2017. Yep. And then he's kind of created variations on a theme from that, is how I think of it, little pastoral notes to kind of point to different ways we're called to unleash the gospel. And he released one in early June, Beth.
Yeah. The Beauty of Truth, a pastoral note on communicating truth and love in the digital age.
Yeah. So... little fun fact: he released it on June 11th, which is my anniversary of ordination, and it was 10 years this year. So
nice.
I feel like he's speaking to me.
He probably
on this
was.
One. Yeah, giving me a call out. Hey, watch
all
it,
of us,
buddy.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is really calling us to live our faith in a digital age, express the beauty of truth in how we communicate. And we'll talk about a number of parts of it, but one part that I thought was really helpful is thinking about the communication of truth isn't just with the words, but it's also the way we communicate it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And we've talked about that a number of times, I think in different ways, but how truth is conveyed with what we say and how we say it.
Absolutely.
So it's not just like, well, what? I said what was true. We're called to live in charity with truth as well. And so the way we say it, our attitude, our reason for saying it needs to communicate who Jesus is as well, and not just kind of be a cudgel of the truth that we're hitting people over the head with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, he starts off just saying that we see and hear a constant stream of messages pouring forth day and night. Which is true, right? I mean, my husband was on Twitter just this morning and mentioning, gosh, why are people so mad? Why are people so angry and rude to each other? And I'm like, what are they mad about this morning? And he's like, oh, so many things. It's just a normal day of the week. You know, there's nothing particularly going on right now. That's just how we communicate to each other, you know? The Archbishop spoke about the sense of us and them, antagonism, even among Catholics. And it's true, right? We see it. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, let me ask you, I mean, what is your social media footprint, to use a weird way of saying it? Like, what platforms can our wonderful listeners find you on, or or not? Right. But like, how do you engage in social media? What tools do you use?
Right. I used to be on Twitter more actively than I am now. Facebook, Instagram, not very active, but somewhat. But Facebook, I used to run our parish's page at my last parish, and so all hours of the night, I'm getting comments and inbox, and I mean, I'm brushing my teeth at night, and now I'm having a fight. I'm like, oh, that was a shame. So now that I'm not responsible for that, or at this point in my parish, it's, you know, I can brush my teeth without having to realize what someone is mad about somewhere.
Brush your teeth in peace.
But I mean, I'm pretty familiar with how we seem to interact. And by we, I mean, you know, probably practicing Catholics, how we seem to interact on social media in both ways that are really inspiring and evangelizing, and in ways that are really harming our efforts. And I don't think people are fully aware of the impact of our words there. So I'm grateful for this pastoral note.
Yeah. I think, so I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Sure.
I'm not on the cooler ones, Snapchat or the TokTik or the other ones like that. But I'm on those three, and you know, for me, I felt like during the pandemic and the last election, there was just so much consternation, vitriol, the right way to say it, that I found it very difficult to engage in things. Like, I didn't know how to engage with people I like in person. Yeah. But then on social media can become,
you know, throwing bombs.
And it's one thing to disagree about certain aspects, you know, important things. But I do feel like there's a way that we can give ourselves an excuse to act on social media in a depersonalizing way. Right. And I think the Archbishop writes here about the reality that the internet is not just a system of wires, but it's a connection of people, of real people whose salvation, the salvation of their soul, is at stake. Yeah. And so I find myself struggling often in the last, I'll just say the last year or so, how to engage in it in a way that that demonstrates with word and tone and all those things, the beauty of truth. So I think it's a real challenge for a lot of people, and I haven't figured out perfectly how to do it. Right. And I think Twitter is the worst of them. Twitter is the place where, you know,
you can say anything.
You can be most anonymous. Right. The brevity of it kind of makes it pretty, you know, conducive to no nuance, and just kind of, you know, making a short, snippy point. Yeah. I just find it to be a challenge as a priest on how I engage in that. I don't know. Do you use it personally? Are you mostly there in your that's a good question. Church capacity, your I suppose
role? It's a mixture. Definitely, I'm there, you know, trying to share just good stuff that's going on in the church and in the world. But I do share personal things about, you know, my family and thoughts and things. I don't think my listeners or my followers are particularly fascinated to hear my opinion on every topic. So I do limit myself. But yeah, I think it's hard for us. I think the skill that we need to learn how to do online is we need to learn how to disagree well. Yeah. My brother's an atheist and has been for a number of years, and he just mentioned how the responses he gets from people when he says that, people are very antagonistic. Yeah. They're very harsh in response to him. Well, how could you think? And what about? And it's sort of, you wouldn't think that people would respond like that, but they do. And I was inspired by that back when I was in youth ministry, and I wrote a game where everyone had to write down anonymously an unpopular opinion that they really held. And then we would read the note, we would read them one at a time anonymously and have a conversation. We had to discuss this, every unpopular decision or opinion for at least 30 seconds or whatever. Okay. And after the discussion, the person who actually that was their opinion, they would give a candy to whoever they would be willing to continue the conversation with. Okay.
Oh,
and the end,
that's a really
everyone
good
had to
gig.
disagree.
Did you come up with that?
I did. Everyone had to disagree with the opinion. So at the time, I think one of my unpopular opinions was I hate Santa Claus. And I do. We can talk about it another time.
Wow.
But so that was so you just read the statement and then everyone has to disagree with it. But they have to find a way to disagree with it so that you would want to continue the conversation with them, right? And it was a fascinating game because our young people, especially, but all of us, we haven't really thought about how to do that, how to disagree well, right? How to like make a point, but still be civil and still respect that this is a person, right, who holds this opinion. Now, it did get dicey because some of the opinions on those papers, you're like, oh boy, that's a really hard one. I have to read that out loud. It's the game. we're gonna read it, you know.
Yeah.
But I think we have to learn how to disagree well. And I think especially if it's online and it's public, the world is watching. I mean, how many of our followers and people like might see that we've left this comment, but they're not a person of faith, and they see us, a person of faith, acting like this.
Yeah.
I don't think we've thought through the ramifications of the way we're talking online.
Yeah. Yeah, I think of it as what we say, how we say it, and then, you know, this is a little nuance, but I think about like the amount of time we spend there.
Oof.
I you know, for my own life, I think I need to be spending a hugely greater proportion of my time in interactions in real life.
Right.
And not that these are not real, because I think more and more it is real, right?
Real.
More and more people are spending a lot of their time there or sharing part of their life that maybe they wouldn't feel comfortable sharing in other ways. So I think it's, you know, the Archbishop does write how St. Paul used the roads of ancient Rome.
That's right. And these are our roads.
And this is our avenue. So I don't want to draw too much of a divide between real and online. But, you know, for me, I think I have to very much limit the amount of time I spend on there because, there's just people physically in my life as a priest that I think I need to be devoted to. So I think part of it, in my own way of approaching it, is to make sure that it doesn't become too much of my life. And I know for people, it can be very addictive. It can be, you know, this thing where, and this can happen with YouTube videos or Facebook videos
or Instagram
as well.
posts. I mean, especially for our young people, right? I mean, this obsession with how many likes and the sense of one's popularity and worth and value being calculated by these metrics. It's, it can be really destructive. And absolutely.
So how do we solve that, Beth?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think more time together is the answer. Now that answer didn't work this last year, right? With COVID, it didn't work, right? We couldn't do that. And so I think probably we've leaned more into it than is healthy because of the pandemic, because it was the only way we really could connect. I think that we have to think through when we are disagreeing with someone so strongly online. I think we have to think about, I think there's just really a need for more self-awareness, right? If I'm so angry or so upset about whatever this issue may be, that I'm reacting like this, or I'm thinking of posting this thing, that I think we just have to take that back to prayer, because that just comes back to, in your anger, do not sin, right? If I'm speaking or acting in a way that's not respecting that this is not a jumble of wires, there's a real human person on the other side of this. I mean, in the midst of the church abuse scandals, when I was the social media manager at my last parish, I mean, these inbox messages that I would get, I mean, I'm just reading this and I'm thinking like, I have to read this, you know, I have to read what you're saying. And because people are just they were so wounded and so angry, and I'm sure people still are, right? But I think we've just got to spend more time with the Lord in prayer. And maybe you're right. Maybe the other solution here is that if we can say these things out loud to one another in person, we can benefit from another person's honesty, and we can just have a conversation about it, which isn't what's happening when we're just posting a 2-sentence poke and then now another 2-sentence poke, right? And then we're getting into these bitter debates online. And meanwhile, the whole world is happening around us, and we're not striving for holiness or being holy where we are in the scrap of space that our physical body is located, right? If we're ignoring our work or our kids or the real things that we should be doing.
Yeah, one of the challenges we talked about last month, Gaudete et Exsultate, Pope Francis's document, where he says Gnosticism is a problem in our world, where only the mind matters and the body is just some vessel, vehicle that we're trapped in, or will pass away, and that, we're not made to spend eternity incarnate. That online we lose all of the, like, you and I are in the same room together with Ron. We can see each other. Yep. I can see if you're kind of understanding what I'm saying, if you're like,
Mostly
what is he talking about? Or if you're bored, or if, whatever. Like, there's so much of human communication that we're picking that's up needed.
Right.
And when you just type something online, oftentimes other people add all the context, all the subtext, all the tone to it. And this can happen with text messages or any kind of format in that way, that it can be disembodied. And even videos can be disembodied in some way online, because it's not the real person that I'm engaged with. It's a
message that they've created, which may be accurate and may not be accurate portrayal of who they are.
I just, recently I went to dinner with a friend of mine, and my phone was updating, and iPhones take, 6 months to update, whatever. It took forever. So I just left it at home and went out, and it was both awkward because I was waiting for him to get there and I couldn't look at my phone while everyone else was. But it was great too, because I just felt a kind of freedom to engage with him, to not worry about
you don't have
my
to
pocket
respond
pinging.
to any urgent anything. You're just unplugged.
And there's always the what if.
True.
What if something awful happens and I'm missing out on it. But I, after that happened, and it happened because of my phone updating, I thought, I'm going to do that more often. I'm going to leave my phone, in my car if I go over someone's house, or just not have it as a crutch for every mini awkward silence, or anytime I get bored, I can just check this. I think it helped me that time, and I think it'll help us going forward. This gets us a little afield of what we're talking about on how to use the digital communications, but I think it's important for us to. I think it's a good
strategy. Strategy number 1: use them less.
Don't become that shouldn't become the normative way that we interact. That there's something about Jesus coming in the flesh that means us being in community with each other is really important.
Of constantly new gadgets, the excitement of travel, and an endless array of consumer goods at times leave no room for God's voice to be heard. We're overwhelmed by words, right? So I agree. I think that there's a lot of distractions there. But
you've got a good memory from last month, remembering that. But let's talk about the
warning
5
signs.
warning signs. I think that would be really good. So the first warning. What's the first warning Archbishop Vigneron gives us?
Any proposition out of harmony with the teachings of Christ and His Church. So when we see media that's proposing things that are opposed to the teachings of our faith, we should probably
attack them, right?
That. No.
Right? We should write nasty comments and maybe create an anonymous account to write nasty comments from.
But the teachings of the church, they endure, right? The church guards the deposit of faith, making it known in every age. So if something is being proposed out there that's going against those, we can know, well.
Yeah, and I think here he's especially talking about those who purport to be Catholic or who say they're Catholic and propose things outside the teaching of the church, who kind of, take the moniker of Catholic and use it for their own teaching that's out of harmony with the church. And the Archbishop says, hey, if we're uncertain about it, hey, we got this cool thing called the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
It's a good book.
Good book. We should look it up and say, hey, is that right? Is that really what we believe? And, and especially, one of the topics can often be about sensitive things like, people who identify as gay or who are living a lifestyle different from the church. And we can have this thing like, why does the church hate gay people? Right. Can often be a moniker, or the church does. To look to the Catechism and say, okay, what is the church calling me to do in this situation? Like, how am I called to respond to people who live differently, who maybe there's a way I have to say that's not in accord with God's plan. But that doesn't fill me with hate or rage or this kind of demand that I have to kind of beat them over the head with it. But okay, what's my response to that? And so if there are media people proposing to be the church, speak for the church, who give us something that doesn't sound right or we're unsure, go to the Catechism of the
Absolutely.
Catholic Church and see what we're being called to do.
Yep, absolutely.
He writes here that the truths of the faith are not subject to revision.
No.
So we can have confidence that, as the letter to the Hebrews says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today,
and tomorrow,
and forever. Yeah. When I was in Mexico studying Spanish, it was during Corpus Christi, and the bishop led a big procession through the streets of Cuernavaca.
Yeah.
And he was chanting, I'm not going to remember. He was chanting, ayer, hoy y siempre. Ayer, hoy y siempre, which in Spanish means yesterday, today, and forever.
Nice.
And so that's what I think of whenever I read that from the letter to the Hebrews.
Nice.
Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. I think about this Mexican bishop chanting that through the streets of Cuernavaca.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Warning sign number 2 of
Numero
the
dos.
problematic use of media and communication, unsubstantiated claims or allegations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a real problem. And I think in our world, when there's less confidence in the institution of the church.
Right.
And some of that is true. Some of that is well earned because of brokenness.
Yeah.
You talked about the challenges from the abuse scandal.
Yeah.
A big part of that was the church not responding in the appropriate way. So when people have less confidence in the church, whether it's her leaders or the institution in some kind of amorphous way, then allegations are easier to make and easier to believe.
Yeah, they're easier to believe because people don't know. Yeah, we have this narrative now that everything is bad, and like there's scandal under every carpet, in every corner, in every crevice. And I think especially for this one, of the difference between like Ave Maria and Al Cresta on his show, he, in the midst of everything that kind of came out a number of years ago, at least, he was really seeking to be exploring what we knew, and I think he was kind of really striving to be more faithful to the church, but also seeking answers for the problems that we were aware of. And then I think of other media outlets that really more just were going, it was all smoke, but there was it was exactly
sensationalism,
this.
Right?
Yeah, a lot of unsubstantiated claims and allegations, but the more like you believe those, right, the more whatever those outlets are, right, the more they can sell you, right? The more they can, if you believed that story, here I've got an even bigger scandal, you never believe this, right? And then we're going from scandal to scandal, but are any of these real? But like we're destroying people's lives when we put out things that aren't rooted in evidence.
Yeah. And that's a real problem that we can say, well, I'm just passing along what I heard, or it's just something I heard. Yeah. And we have a pretty serious obligation as Catholics, and this is rooted in the 8th commandment to not bear false witness, that I have an obligation for the words I use, and that's no less true online. Right. So if I share something, that I heard so-and-so about such and such, that I have an obligation for the harm that causes. And if it causes justified harm, right, if someone's reputation is harmed because of what they did, then we can stand before the Lord with that to say, hey, it's something that, I know is true, and I believed in my heart, and discernment is the right thing to do. But if I'm just kind of throwing things out there to see what sticks, or to say, hey, we need a great cleansing, and a cleansing means every claim just needs to be put out there. Like, that is not how we're called to bear witness to the beauty of truth.
Right. So the third one, the manipulation of facts to deceive or harm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, facts can be arranged in a way, the Archbishop says, and maybe added, with sensational music or photos or insinuations, with facts being true, that can lead to cause people real spiritual harm. If the church is a family, and the church is meant to be a family, a community of believers, there has to be mutual trust of each other. Now, that trust has to be rooted in the truth, but we need to give people the benefit of the doubt. We're not called to be uncritical, and we're not called to shut our minds off, but we do have to presume goodwill for other people. And I think if we're always manipulating facts, or kind of shaping facts to fit a preconceived narrative, man, talk about poisonous for the life of any community, right?
Absolutely.
Like a family couldn't survive that way.
No.
A school couldn't survive that way.
No.
And the body of Christ is just going to be torn apart with division if we
that's
do
what
that.
we're seeing.
Yeah.
Division.
So what do we do?
What do we do?
Well, what do I do? What do you do in this reality? I think
I don't read it. That's one of my takeaways. If I'm aware of a media outlet or something that, I mean, you can tell by their fruits, right?
Yeah.
Does this lead to constructive dialogue, or does this just lead to division?
Yeah.
Is this written in a spirit of charity, or is it not? There are some that I won't read anything that they write. There are some outlets that I won't read anything. Even if someone sends me the article, I will not click on it. I just won't, because I know what they're about. I have the impression that all of these warning signs for me are sounding.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's healthy for me to read it, and I don't think it's healthy for other people to read it. I don't think it helps us grow in holiness. I don't think it helps it certainly I don't think helps our evangelical witness.
Yeah.
And I think it really harms the way that we're called to live in charity towards one another, especially, and to the world. I was just reading through this letter, and then I just went on the Archdiocesan Facebook page just to see, well, how are we doing? Let's just do a quick litmus test. Why did the bishop feel we needed to write this? So I was just rolling down through a few posts, and this is just a public page. Anyone can see these comments. How many people would read these comments and think, oh boy, these must be the disciples of Jesus. See how they love one another.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm reading, right? And these are good, faithful people who love the Lord. But why are we not loving our neighbor then online? Why are we not loving? Because maybe we do just think it's some impersonal thing. Yeah. We don't sound like Christians, I think, in some of our comments. And I think that's a big problem.
Yeah.
A big problem.
I think you're right. We have an obligation for what we consume media-wise, because it is going to shape us. And so, if I think about, this is a problem in the church. It's a problem in the wider society. If I'm, and this is why I think we need to be careful how much time we spend on it. But if I'm constantly watching cable news and letting that kind of
that's
be
your
the
narrative.
background noise.
You let them give you your narrative.
Yeah,
of truth.
That's going to affect me, right? If I'm constantly listening to music that is either
negative
blasphemous or kind of vulgar, that's going to affect me. If I'm watching a television show, right, that kind of degrades women or treats sexuality as something that is, not in accord with what Christ has given us, or kind of uses violence or language, that's going to affect me, right? That forms my mind. It shapes my mind. And the same is true with the news we read about the church. If I'm consuming a set of facts that are preordained to follow a narrative that someone has, that's going to affect me. So I have to be responsible for what I consume about the church. And I have to turn to sources that I know are going to help me grow in holiness. That's one of the things, I think is so important. I'm glad you mentioned, what is going to help me grow in holiness? Yeah. Is following Vatican intrigue going to help me grow in holiness? 99.9% of people, it's not. No. There's nothing you can do about it, right?
No, except for the things you could have done before you read the article. Pray, sacrifice, fast.
Yeah.
Use your voice.
Exactly. And you can do those things now. Do that.
You don't have to read the article.
In a general,
people struggle with sin. Spoiler alert. Temptation is real.
Or kind of wild accusations about things we have an obligation to seek out truth and to know it, but to be very discerning and to know that the amount of time or effort or energy I spend trying to figure out or know things beyond my sphere of influence, my sphere of where God has put me, is not conducive. Spending a ton of time in that is not conducive to growing in holiness. And it's really a trick of the devil that gets me distracted from the life God has called me to live. Yes. The fourth one here is just obvious and ad hominem attacks, people who go after individuals and make personal attacks against them. I don't think there's a lot of nuance that needs to be figured out about that.
No, I don't think so.
If someone is making up names or calling people in a derogatory way, rude nicknames, that's not someone who is going to help you grow in holiness.
No, it's not. No.
Yeah. No bueno.
Yeah. How can we treat people that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the spirit of division.
Spirit of division.
And we've talked about that too.
God's Holy Spirit unites, Satan divides.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
And I think the zeal for a good cause neither requires nor excuses purposefully sowing seeds of division. especially division from and within the mystical body of Christ, the church.
Right.
It helps to remember that strength and gentleness are not antithetical.
Right.
I think that's so good.
I think it's so good. I think we've forgotten that. I think people all the time think, well, but it's for a good cause, so we can go ahead and sow these seeds of division. I don't think we understand that.
Yeah.
And the significance of division within the body of Christ, how that's particularly wrong, right? I mean, if in the secular world, right, there's division, like who would be surprised, right? I mean, there's no moral compass, there's no guiding, but we're Christians, we know who we are. We're children of God, created in his image and likeness, made for love, made for eternity, and we are one in our baptism. We are one body. How we can speak to one another like that? I mean, it's not Christian. It's just not Christian. Pope Francis said in Evangelii Gaudium, to pray for a person with whom I am irritated is a beautiful step forward in love, an act of evangelization. Let us do it today. Let us not allow ourselves to be robbed of the ideal of fraternal love. Right? Is that what we're doing? Are we choosing to do that?
Right.
Are we choosing to pray for one another and to love one another? Or are we just leaning into the spirit of division? Are we not even aware that we're a source of division? If we're repeating or reading every time we consume an article like that, right, they're getting more money, so they're going to create more articles like that.
Yeah.
Every time I share whatever this dividing statement was or article, every time I share that, more people are going to see it, and it increases, right?
Yeah.
We each play a role in this.
Yeah. Yeah, and strength and gentleness are not opposed to each other, I think is such an important point to say, Jesus, meek and humble of heart, make my heart like unto thine, is not to say we ignore problems in the church, we ignore challenges, but it is to say we are radically committed to living in and from the heart of Jesus, and the solutions we seek are the solutions that Jesus gives us, not just in truth, but in methods too, right? And the methods need to be with tremendous humility, with great love, with the desire that Jesus's heart has, that all may be one, and not in a kind of, burn the whole thing down.
Burn it to the ground.
Right?
Right. Yeah. Mother Teresa said, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to one another.
Yeah. And so towards the end, the Archbishop writes, I think beautifully, our goal is not to win arguments, but to win souls. Yeah. And oftentimes we win a soul not by presenting the most coherent facts. Sometimes that works, but most of the time it's through the attractiveness of holiness.
Yeah.
By desiring Jesus and loving as Jesus loved,
right.
which often costs more from myself, right? That I have to sacrifice, I have to be patient and endure. Right. The assaults or the difficulties or people's brokenness, and show the unflinching love of Jesus.
Yeah. We've talked before about the apostolic age. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of it?
Yeah, from Christendom to apostolic.
Yes, thank you. We talked about that before, and just how what the world needs right now, because people are not following Christ, they don't know him, right? What people need is for us to be apostles. They need us to be evangelizing. Well, how many of us are using social media to do that?
Right.
Or are we just sharing internal church politics and a complaint about this, or the way they do mass there, or the way that's not going to help us out in an apostolic age, people. So maybe it's time for us to lean into more charity that we should have had back in Christendom anyway.
Well, and one of the challenges, maybe just the last point here, because I know I got to go and you want to embarrass me with a little quiz here.
I'm looking forward to it.
But one of the last points is, as we have access to more information, it can be really easy to pick stories across the world that are embarrassing, right? Like, look what this priest did that he shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not as scandalous. It can just be like this, like the way he said this was silly or kind of goofy, or look at this mistake a bishop made, or and we have access to all these things. That doesn't lead to wisdom. These little nuggets of problems in the world doesn't lead to wisdom or holiness.
It's true.
It's just data points that we know are out there. We know we live in a broken world.
Right.
That doesn't help us. What we need are ways to be committed radically to Jesus Christ and to worry about the people that God has put into my life. And first and foremost, to try to take the log out of my own eye as I try to grow in holiness, so that I can help my brothers and sisters grow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, in that vein, in one of our post-podcast discussions, you said that you were not a dog person.
I am not.
But that you don't like telling people that because they may think you're a serial killer. And, I can see your point there.
So let me just say, I don't despise dogs. I don't dislike dogs. I've never had a dog, and I don't anticipate getting a dog. It's not something that... I would do. Right. So now I feel like the more I explain it, the more guilty.
The worse it gets. Yeah, right. The worse it gets. Yeah.
So I'll just be quiet.
Well, for today's quiz, I'd like to ask you or give you an opportunity to name the top 10 dogs, the most popular dogs.
Okay.
Now, this is by internet search, so it's hard to
what year is the
measure
data?
People's hearts.
What year is the data from?
It's current. So I'll give you as many guesses as you like. So you're thinking of the most popular dog breeds.
When I think of dogs, I think of golden retrievers.
Golden retrievers. Yes, that's number 6.
Number 6.
Nice work.
Labradors.
Yep, that's number 3. Nice.
Number 3. Are poodles on here?
Poodles are number 7.
Okay.
Nice work.
I don't know if this will be on the list, but German Shepherds.
German Shepherds number 2.
Really?
Yep,
wow.
You got it.
I don't see that many German Shepherds.
Kind of scary. I know.
Yeah, they're a tough dog.
I guess people like them.
My favorite kind of dog is a Siberian Husky.
That's number 4. I really didn't think you were going to get that one. Is it because they're so good? They're great looking dogs.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
and
my
I
husband
hear
thinks they're really cool too.
They get hot really easily in the summer.
They have a lot of energy.
Do they?
I think it's a full-time job having a husky. I've always wanted one because they look like wolves. I want my own wolf.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome. Walk down the street with a wolf. Great.
If I had a dog, I'd want one I'm a little bit afraid of.
Oh, is that right? Okay,
like
great.
a Doberman Pinscher. That's not on the list.
That's not on the list.
Okay.
No, I can't
These
give you
aren't
that
security
one.
dogs.
No.
There's a bunch of little dogs that I don't know.
There are a lot of little dogs.
So one of the priests I lived with had a beagle.
A beagle. No,
that's
can't
not
give you
there.
beagle.
There's like a Shih Tzu.
Shih Tzu. Nope, can't give you Shih Tzu.
Are there mixes? I've heard of like Labradoodles, but that's
there are
not
no
gonna
mixes.
Be on there. Yeah.
Nope. But the oodles are popular.
I know another dog who had a bulldog.
Bulldog's number 1. Yep.
Is it really?
You know what's ironic is you've gotten all the big dogs, and all the ones that are left are little dogs, which could be more of a man thing. My husband's like, if we're getting a dog, we're getting a big dog. I'm not walking a little. Well, I won't say
Chihuahua?
what he said. Chihuahua's number 8. Yep, you got Chihuahua.
So I know a woman who's from the state of Chihuahua in Mexico.
Seriously? Wow.
And I was like, is that where the dogs come from? And
Did
she
she
laughed.
appreciate that question?
She's like, no. It's like, well, why are they called that?
Right. Oh,
so
no.
I don't even know now.
Yeah.
I haven't looked that up. Bull Mastiff. That's a big dog.
No, those are big dogs.
Are they?
Yeah. I'll give you one more guess.
Yeah, I don't know little dogs.
Little dogs, yeah.
There's like I see like sometimes people put dogs in their purse.
Yep.
Those are like really
Those
small.
are really little ones. I don't really know what those are called. So the littlest,
so what do we got?
The littlest one is Pomeranian.
I would not have gotten that.
I don't think so. Yep. And then French Bulldog.
I said bulldog.
Yeah, but those are different things.
English
French
bulldog?
Bulldogs are very expensive. And
I
like
don't know.
a big deal.
Ron's telling me they're the same.
Well,
so.
unfortunately, I'm the one who wrote the quiz. I
I'm
didn't
the
write
one
it.
looking
I found
at the
it.
internet.
And then the last one, pugs. Pugs.
Ah.
Pugs are bred so that they can't breathe properly. I don't know if you knew that. I walked a buddy's pug, and we walked 2 blocks, and you would have thought we were torturing this dog. People were looking at us like, why are you making that dog walk that far? I'm like, literally, he lives there. This is how far we've walked. People couldn't believe it.
We are not trying to kill him.
He was not a super healthy dog, so I feel bad about the pugs. They should be able to breathe. All right, well, not bad. Not bad. You got 7 correct out of the top 10 most popular dogs. So I think you've passed the test.
All right, that's a C.
Congratulations.
I'll take that. And let's commit ourselves, brothers and sisters, to the beauty of truth, to living, engaging in communication, whether it's communication we create or communication that we receive, to bearing witness to our commitment to holiness in the midst of communicating, especially through social media and other technological means, like podcasting.
Like podcasts. Amen. Yes. Well, this has been another episode of Encounter Grow Witness podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and tell everybody you know. We want to have more people in our conversation.